Welcome everybody to our main meeting of the month. And before we get started, the disclaimer. Please note that all our meetings are recorded and made available to the public for viewing on our YouTube channel. By participating in the meeting, it is understood that you have accepted these terms. So tonight on the agenda, we have Charlie uh, discussion about APRS and an introduction and its uses. And then Eric will follow up with a FDIMn North recap. And then if we have any other times, we can have any discussions or questions or queries, whatever. Okay, Charlie, you ready to roll?
Sure am. Just have to remember how to do screen sharing once again. Before I do that, I should probably, given our um, last discussions, turn off my video just in case it causes some troubles again in the presentation of stuff. Okay, so I want to share. This screen. And then I need to and I should be sharing a slide with you right now.
And you are.
And you are.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so this is kind of an APRS 101. I put this presentation together for a group of folks at the beginning of January, actually, and thought it might be a fun thing to do here as well, since not everybody has played with APRS or use it for anything beyond just a quick experiment. But it was January when I put it together. So 4 months ago, I'm going to be, to be honest, I'm going to be relearning some of this stuff as I present it to you this evening. So a little bit of history. Way back in the 70s, long before the World Wide Web, businesses and universities had data accessible by a dial-up modem. Those of us who remember the sound of a dial-up modem. Services were pretty limited back in those days, usually just kind of a bulletin board type of service where it was kind of like a post office. You could post messages, pick up messages, and sometimes you could run programs or play simple games. I remember spending a lot of time playing the equivalent of Dragons and Dungeons, exploring the world uh, online at about 1200 baud. The framing protocol back in those days was FX25, and FX25 has forward error correction. It's intended for one-to-one communication, so it doesn't do well in a sort of one-to-many environment. It's kind of the equivalent of today's TCP in TCP/IP as opposed to UDP, which is kind of the fire and forget one-to-many protocol. Amateurs figured out how to take these dial-up modems and use them over the radio with a bit of a couple of tweaks to the handshaking because radio isn't while it is bidirectional, it's one direction at a time. So there need to be a few tweaks and twiddles to make X25 work in that environment. But it wasn't very long before folks were using their low-end computers, TRS-80s and whatnot, to talk at 1200 baud over their radio, 2-meter or HF even, to connect to the bulletin board servers at 1200 baud. And it worked really well. In fact, it was so robust that X25 is still embedded today in most operating systems, and that includes Windows and Linux. Although having said that, the next version of Linux core apparently is kicking out X25. There's a bunch of um, debate around that protocol being removed from Linux, and some folks are working on a sort of a siloed application which would replace X25. But up until now, for probably more than 40 years, X25 has been built right into the system. The radio-based packet system kind of stopped being used once the web became popular. I mean, inherently it's slow at 1200 baud, and it is, as I mentioned earlier, one-to-one in nature, kind of the equivalent of TCP. So if you accidentally started downloading a multi-megabit graphical file on somebody's web page, you can go out for a coffee and probably go out for breakfast before you get control of your computer again. Nevertheless, Packet is actually still used today for text service like 2-meter WinLink and emergency communications and so on. Are a number of clubs are still using Packet, with Packet associated with their repeater on a different frequency. Just kind of a little bit of a sidebar rabbit hole. The value of error correction. I came across this chart and thought it was worthwhile sharing. Um, if what this chart is trying to tell you is that if you've got a bit error rate of, well, let's pick this one of 1 bit per thousand. For 1,000 packets, one of them is errored. AX25 will have a little more than half the packets get through, and the other half will be sent back for retransmission because they're errored packets. Whereas even 16-bit, 32-bit, or 32-bit error correction, any of those chosen wouldn't see any errors with 1 in 1,000 errors. If you have 1 in 100 errors, this is really quite interesting. FX25 64-bit would all of those packets would still get through. 100% would get through. Whereas if you were using AX25 without much in the way of error correction, none of the packets would be getting through if there were errors of 1 in 100. So that particular number gives you a really good example of the value of being able to do some form of forward error correction. In this case, it's something as simple as a CRC, cyclic redundancy checking. So why APRS? Packet radio has been around for a long time. Well, Packet's got a lot of problems. First of all, as I mentioned, it's between 2 stations only. I have to know where my destination station is located. And worse, I have to know the path my messages need to take to get there. So, for instance, if I were to send you a message by 2-meter WinLink from here in Pembroke, I would send my packet to VE3 NRR, which is a repeater that I can almost see from my house, and tell NRR to forward it to STP, and then also ask STP to pass it to VA3 OSF, then ask OSF to hand it off to OCE10, which would give it to BBQ10, which actually hosts the WinLink RMS. So many repeaters. I have to know the exact path. I have to tell each repeater who to hand off to. There's lots of opportunity for things to get dropped, trying to do resends. And at the end of the day, sending a message of 10 or 20 lines can take a significant amount of time to get through. So it's very slow at 1200 baud, even if it didn't have to do a bunch of retransmissions, but almost guaranteed you're going to be doing a bunch, with this number of handoffs. Worse yet, if any of these stations are down, I can't connect. I'd need to try and figure out an alternative route, preferably in advance, so I could switch, switch to that alternative route if there are any, and maybe even an alternate WinLink RMS if I knew of one. By the way, we have one set up in Petawawa, which I could go to, but if my internet's out, it probably is too. They're just a couple kilometers down the road from here. So, and the other limitation is that if I travel to a new area, I got a lot of research to do before I can use the system. So uh, there's a lot of limitations and restrictions around this between two stations only problem, and APRS addresses these issues and adds some additional capability. So what's APRS? APRS stands for Automatic Packet Reporting System. Initially, it was Automatic Position Reporting System, and it was developed by Bob Berdinga while he was a senior research engineer at the Naval Academy back in the 80s in the US. He developed it for tracking ships at sea, and that was the initial application. But since then, it's been modified, new features added, and so on, so that it's a lot more than just something for tracking locations. If you read the explanation about what it is, it's defined now as a tactical real-time information sharing and communication system that provides situational and spatial awareness of your immediate local area. So that's quite a mouthful, but among the things it can do is it can tell you about things that are happening or of interest near you. Local repeaters can send out bulletins. You can query for any information of things that are going on, and you'll get that information back, and so on and so forth. It allows local and even global communications. You can send messages between APRS units if you have one that has it built in, or if you've built your own. But there's also the capability of sending those messages through text or email, so that you can, in fact, get communications out using APRS to folks who are not amateur radio operators and do not have APRS capability on their radios. It provides access to a lot of information because you can actually do queries and responses with it. So there are a number of information servers out there, so you can do things like, get the latest weather information. There are gateways to other services, so you can collect messages and so on. And all of this you can do if you've bought the right radio. You can do it on your radio's display. But you can also use a cell phone or a laptop or a tablet to get that visual representation of everything, um, overlaid on a map if you wish. Um, uh, and if you, even if you don't service, for those things, um, you don't have cell service, for instance, you can still use your cell phone or laptop with the radio and collect that information. So Bob Berdinga said the goal is communication and local information, not just vehicle traffic tracking. And you'll note lots of people do use it for vehicle tracking, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes here. So how does it work? APRS uses those X25 frame packets at 1200 baud. The X25 framing built into the core of the device you're using typically, although there are some software applications that use their own implementation of it. And those messages are sent at 1200 baud over a single shared frequency. It's 2 meters typically, and typically simplex. and that frequency is used throughout a country or a region. So pretty much anywhere you go, there's APRS coverage um, at 144.39 in North America. And so you can, like Simplex, you can send out a query, get some information back, or even collect your messages. APRS protocol is a one-to-many information sharing approach. So you fire off a packet and kind of forget about it, kind of like UDP. And if a packet gets lost, so be it. The next one will probably get through. Digipeaters form the backbone of APRS networks. The Digipeater basically does kind of a store and forward. So it receives a packet, and then depending on a particular algorithm, it will fire that packet out to the next station that hopefully can hear the repeater if they couldn't hear the original transmission. Digipeaters are often co-located at repeater sites, so typically there's no internet connectivity at those locations, so they do an RF repeat. But with a nice high antenna at those repeater sites, they'll typically have a much wider range than the original radio sending the transmission. Also, there are fill-in digipeaters typically located at folks' homes. These don't have the range, but since most homes have internet these days, they can be used as what's called an iGate to get those packets onto the internet. If they don't have internet access, well, they kind of provide a bit of fill-in radio coverage in the RF dead zone. So APRS tends to be fairly ubiquitous, particularly in the US. And I mentioned iGates earlier. You probably have figured out that iGates bridge information between radio and the internet in both directions. So when I send a packet that gets picked up by an iGate, it forwards it to an information server called APRS IS. And when I send a message to APRS IS, it has my location and it knows which iGate that I've sent that message through. So if there are any messages waiting for me in the system, they'll be sent back to that iGate that I accessed, and then it will be forwarded on to my radio. One other cool thing about APRS is that we can actually exchange messages between two APRS units over radio without need of an iGate. So if there's no internet available, or for any reason, we can do a point-to-point message transfer instead of going through the network. Time for a couple of pictures. This is an older chart. It's about 8 or 10 years old, but it kind of covers the concept in that we can have a radio over here like this HT on the right.
Sorry, Charlie.
Yes.
Yeah, your slide didn't advance.
See it yet?
No.
Well, let me see if I can.
There you go.
Okay. So on the left side of this chart, you'll see a bunch of HTs that can either talk to a local iGate or even bounce APRS packets over satellite, either to another radio or to an iGate or to some mobile vehicle. All of these things get collected and end up on the internet. could go to another iGate, could go to a server, could go to that email engine I mentioned earlier, or a text engine that I mentioned earlier, where your message can get sent out to somebody who's not part of the network, or can out on the left side of the page, bounce off a satellite, get picked up by an iGate, cross the internet over to the right side of the page here, and then get out to an HT on the other side of the planet. And because this information is all captured on servers, there are some pretty cool applications you can do using that information. Before I dig into that, though, here's a picture from a slide from 10 years ago, showing the kind of APRS coverage there is in the U.S. I looked for an equivalent one for Canada. There's some stations showing in the West here and in our part of the country, but there are more APRS units, of course, that aren't on this chart, particularly now, given that this is about 10 years old. So there were, at that time, there were over 40,000 users worldwide, with relays every kind of 30 to 50 kilometers. And then, of course, there's the satellites. Weather stations, too, by the way, can report the weather by APRS. The other cool thing you can do when you're sending packets of information is you can do telemetry and bits and pieces of data pretty much everywhere. But again, a little note here at the bottom that even 10 years ago, there were only about 2% of ham radio users who actually had APRS capability. So here's an example of one of the many programs that can use the APRS data and kind of display the information on a map. This particular one is called UI View, but there are many others, and there are, in fact, websites like APRS.fi will show a map of the world, and if you type in a call sign, it will tell you where that call sign is, show you. This particular one for I believe is Hamvention back in the day, and this is some of the vehicles in the parking lot and whatnot. Not last weekend, but 4 days in May, 10 years ago or thereabouts, 10, 12 years ago. So this is the kind of information that you can get to show where vehicles are parked or physically located. You can zoom in and zoom out, stick in someone's call sign, and they'll appear here where they're physically located if they have an APRS unit in their vehicle. Here's another tool for. I took a few shots of this particular area where I am physically near Pembroke, and this is the information that's available on APRS.fi. So you can see here, on the right, you can see these various weather stations, repeaters, all sorts of things up and down. There are VE2s on the east side of the river here, and VE3s on the west side. This is the Ontario-Quebec border. A lot of these, this concentration down in the bottom corner here is in the Ottawa area, just coming out of it. And then as you go up the valley, you can see Pembroke and Petawawa are in here with weather stations. VE3YX, it's my friend Bob. He's in Point Alexander, but he has a weather station set up um, sorry, not a weather station, but a WinLink gateway set up in Petawawa that I mentioned earlier at Mike VE3 ODI's house. And Mike also, another Mike a couple of blocks away, VE3YF, his weather station is physically located here, and it's reporting weather across the network. You can click on that and see what's happening with weather. If you choose one of these stations that's showing on here, you can click on it and have a look at, what stations is it hearing, what stations are hearing it. You can get information about where it's reporting in. You can even get the raw packet data if you're trying to analyze, some telemetry information that might be included in it, or um, any number of other things. There's a lot of information in here, and it's a very sophisticated tool that can be used for very simple things or very complex things. And as I've mentioned to most of the folks here before, we've got um, APRS units collecting telemetry data on mountaintops, mountaintop repeaters in the Yukon. There are 26 of them, and about half of them are APRS equipped. The others are getting equipped as soon as there's a reason to visit them, because most you need a helicopter ride to get there. Messaging, APRS-IS also collects and holds messages. Um, in this particular display of message information, it shows who the message is from and where it was going. If it's green, it has been received. If it's red, it has not yet been received. The messages, when you actually look at the contents of the message, you'll see the curly bracket here with a number behind it. That number is the message sequence. So sometimes these things, because of the nature of APRS, could come in out of order, but the number helps you um, keep them in the right order, if you like. This one with a 0, that was it. It was one message. Um, the first one, and there was no follow up with it. It was received, and there was no reply. These others are sitting waiting to be picked up. It's possible that the person they were intended for has shut down their radio, and they'll get it next time they power it up, or they could be occupied or could be out of range right now, and when they get back into range, they'll get those messages. So the ability to send messages, there's the message content, but there's also additional information that comes in the packet. Let's talk about that in a minute or two, but um, because of that information, there are some kind of cool applications you can do with this. So for instance, here's using APRS in a sporting event. This was called Hike Across Maryland. Again, I've picked up some information that's posted on U.S. websites. Again, this is an older one, but there were 100 runners on the Hike Across Maryland, which is a 40-mile trip. And the idea was to keep track of all of the runners. Where are they? Somebody stopped for a long time. Perhaps somebody needs to go check out and see if they've fallen and hurt themselves or something. Um, most of the runners were not amateur radio operators, so they were not allowed to do any transmissions or anything. It was really, telemetry data with things like timing, physical location, that sort of information, and they could send a message, trigger a message, a telemetry message being sent without actually being able to, um, um, you know, put something in the message. So there's no concerns about incorrect information or illegal information being sent. Um, it was kind of all packed in a little unit that was handed to each of the runners, and most of the folks who used these units agreed it was like the same as sending a text or a tweet on X. There's a few misconceptions about APRS out there. The biggest one probably when you talk to a lot of folks is that, oh, it's just a vehicle tracking system. It's clearly much more than that. Real-time information distribution system. As a matter of fact, GPS isn't even needed for tracking, so it doesn't depend on GPS for its value. Um, Depends on what you want to do with it. Telemetry data is always going to be, say, weather station data is always going to be from the same spot. So there's no real need for having a GPS unit there. You can just hard code in the location. Um, and it doesn't need to be used in a mobile application. Um, there's also a belief that you have to have those APRS clients that do mapping to show where things are. The application set's way wider than that. Maps are one application, but like the rest of ham radio, there are thousands of things you can do. Mapping is just one of those things. Um, Another problem that often comes up is um, understanding the importance of objects and operations. So APRS radio can send a packet on behalf of another object, like a weather station, for instance, and um, operations, things like collecting telemetry data and so on, and reporting that back um, is uh, is pretty critical to some of the things you can do with it. Lots of users don't know about the real-time messaging, and lots of users don't know about the telemetry capability, and those are probably two of the most useful additional capabilities of the APRS system. And I guess the most common error is around the decay algorithm, and I'll talk about that decay algorithm in a couple of more charts. So the APRS internet system is something that has been around for quite a while. It's basically that global backbone over the internet that interconnects a number of servers. If you have an iGate, for instance, the iGate will connect you to a tier one server. Typically, those are used in rotation. If one gets busy, you get handed off to a different one, and then it passes information to the tier two servers. Um, and there's probably a couple of tier two servers for North America, and they exchange information with Asia and Europe and so on um, as well. So in order to log in, a call sign requires a passcode, and they're very easy to get. Once you've got the passcode, you can send your packets in and have it appear on the APRS.is webpage. You can uh, effectively subscribe to messages from a given call sign or a given area or everything in VE3 or everything in the world. You can filter which messages the server hands to you. And you really do need to filter because there's a lot of messages going on out there. If it's not filtered, your your little application is going to fall over, just getting totally swamped with messages. Um, so I don't know what else should I say on this particular slide. Servers are assigned kind of at random. After you're assigned, the packets will eventually worm their way through to APRS.is, and you can now query the APRS.is server to see, where someone's call sign is, get the weather information, pick up the telemetry data, whatever it is that you're interested in. So the APRS packet. I don't know if anyone remembers what the X25 packet looked like or not, but the APRS packet is quite similar. Um, it's in the form of here's the source of the information, here's the destination for the information, and then what the information actually is. That is the old X25 protocol. But APRS changes that a little bit in that after the destination, it will tell you which digipeater has seen it. So if I hand off a packet through NRR and it gets picked up by someone's iGate, what the packet will look like will be the source, the destination, the fact that it went through NRR, and then the information that's supposed to be in the packet. And you can have potentially up to 8 different digipeaters in there, in which case, they'll all be listed in order so you can see what path your packet actually took, which is really useful for troubleshooting when things are going sideways. As you'd expect, the source is the origin of the packet. That would be, in my case, VE3XCC. The destination, since APRS is connectionless, the destination isn't a specific server, but usually it's a generic message like CQ, or it could be identifying the type of system that's generating the packet. So if you see a destination, for example, here of APDW18, that would have been a packet that came from Darwolf 1.8, version 1.8. And that list of digipeaters that it's traversed, I mentioned earlier, and that becomes the path identifier. You'll see a couple of things down here at the bottom in this example packet that says wide 1.1 and wide 2.1 before the details of the information. Those specify how often we actually repeat a packet.
Charlie, we're not seeing the slide. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so how often do we repeat a packet? The current generic method is, XXX small n dash capital N. So XXX is a routing prefix. It can be up to 5 characters. Usually it's wide these days, but if there's a special event or something going on, you might want to use a special event code in there. Or if you're trying to, contain packets to a specific area, maybe it's, well, the example here is OT for things of interest to Ottawa, but not other locations. The first N is the digipeater class. It's usually 1 for a local fill-in short-range digipeater, or 2 is for a wide coverage area. Numbers up to 7 can be used, but generally, most of the times, all I ever see is 1 and 2. You might see this as, in terms of descriptions online, as being the initial maximum number of times a packet can be digipeated. In fact, that's what I used to think until I dug into it a little deeper. That's wrong. It's really the role or class of the digipeater. And then the second number is the remaining number of times the packet can be digipeated. Usually it's in the range of 1 through 7. Every time it gets digipeated, it gets decremented until it reaches 0, and then once it's at 0, the address should be removed from the path and throw away the packet. This is to prevent packets bouncing around in the system forever and clogging things up. 1 to 7 is mentioned here. 7 is really a huge number. Almost always it would be a 2 at the outside. Some cases where you've got a long way between eye gates, you might use a 3, but 7 is way too big a number, at least certainly in our area. So just again, an example of the packet decay algorithm. So I fire out my packet, and I'll send a wide 1-1 and a wide 2-2, and then whatever my information is. So at this point, because I've sent it out, there are no used addresses. You won't see any asterisks here or anything like that. And when you see it in this form with no asterisk, you know you're hearing the original source station. Now, suppose I'm off in the Yukon and XXV hears my packet. Well, it will then retransmit it, and what it will retransmit is VE3XCC to the direwolf. Because there's no real destination shown here, then it will insert its call sign where the wide 1-1 was, and an asterisk is put in to let you know that the wide 1-1 has been used up, and then of course the information.
The slide didn't advance again.
Are you seeing the decay algorithm?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've thrown away the 1-1, which would have been, if it was immediately heard by an eye gate, that would have been used, but it wasn't in this case. So after XXV is retransmitted, well, lo and behold, Hayes Peak picks it up. And since it doesn't have an eye gate, it retransmits it. So now what it will send out is, VE3XCC, the destination, generic destination. It'll display XXV, which was the first digipeater, and then RHP, which is Hayes Peak, with the asterisk saying this is the last guy who's transmitting it. And the wide 2-2 has now been decremented to a 2-1. So now IRL picks up the packet from Hayes Peak, and so it will retransmit it. And what it will send as an address will be, again, VE3XCC to this generic address, XXV as the first repeater that heard it, RHP, the second repeater that heard it, and IRL as the repeater that is retransmitting. And since the 2.1 is going to go to 0, there are no more opportunities for retransmission here. So IRL is retransmitting it, and then of course the information. Now the good news is that I know our IRL is just up the hill from an eye gate, and so consequently that eye gate would have picked up IRL's transmission and sent my packet out to APRS.is. So if you see this being displayed, you'll know that you're listening to IRL. And again, all the addresses have been used up, and so this can't be digipeated anymore. But if the iGate picks it up, the iGate can in fact send it off to APRS.is. So the information part, what's in there? Seeing the chart of information types now.
Yes.
Okay. So there are a number of different types of packets that can be sent. There's the position packet, which is the one most people are familiar with, and that information in there is the location of the transmitting station. There's information about the station capabilities. For example, if it's at a repeater site, it might be interesting to know what the transmission power is, how high the antenna is, what gain is the antenna, possibly a range of the station, or some information about that particular location, like does this repeater also support Echolink, or what the APRS frequency is, because it's the same everywhere, but what the heck is the frequency of that local repeater? Well, some folks put that information as well as any CTCSS code in the information packet that gets sent out. The next type is an object packet. It's kind of like a position report, but it gets sent on behalf of other entities, like weather stations is the one that gets used a lot. You can have a telemetry packet. There's specific formats for telemetry information, and it could be the example here is monitoring the repeater site. Right? Text messages would be another type of packet in there that fits in the information or comment field. Bulletins can be put in here. So, if you've got a hamfest going on, you can use this as one more method of talking folks into the hamfest. Or if there's something special going on, that can be included in the APRS packet as well. You can do queries and responses in the information. So, whether trying to find the location of the latest one-link gateway, for instance, or sending out text messages or email, for instance. The comment field I mentioned before is quite useful. It's about 72 characters long, and you can put pretty much anything you want into it. I typically, rather than using the actual telemetry fields, I'll send the telemetry data, which sometimes is in unusual formats. I'll send that as a comment. Also, programs like Direwolf can take the last line of a text file and send that in the comment field. So you can have asynchronous gathering of data that when APRS comes around, it just grabs whatever the most recent data is and sends that off. And then you can even define your own. If you don't like any of these sort of standard forms, you can create any kind of package you'd like. That's kind of it for the APRS information. I did have just one extra chart in here on the installation at most repeater sites, and that is that the VHF or UHF radio, it will have typically a tuned cavity in series between the radio and the antenna, which has a 144.39 notch filter. The idea being to not put APRS packets into the radio receiver that's sharing the antenna. And then going in the other direction out to the APRS unit and its radio, there will be a bandpass filter so that in whatever the repeater is doing, that power goes to the antenna and does not go in and kind of blow up the APRS unit. So this is typical installation requires the addition of not just the APRS radio, but an extra couple of cavity resonators to make sure that it gets the APRS packet information gets steered to the right location. That's my last chart. Any questions? Peter. I think it was Peter had that question.
Yeah, Charlie, I guess last time I used Packet was probably the early 90s. But I don't recall having to list out all the stations I had to link up to get to the end station that I wanted to talk to. I thought I just typed in the end call sign of the person I wanted to talk to, and it found its own way there. But you were saying you had to put the path in?
I certainly do here. So I didn't. First time I used Packet was only a couple of years ago. As I've mentioned before, I'm actually a relatively new ham operator. So, but in terms of Packet here, yeah, you absolutely have to have all the stations online.
Because I can remember talking to a guy over in Germany fairly regularly, and I'm pretty darn sure I didn't put in 15 different call signs to make the path over to him.
If you were using Packet to Germany, you were going across the internet. So maybe you got onto the internet fairly quickly.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Charlie.
Okay. Drew. Drew, you may be muted.
Yeah, what you're missing, Charlie, from NRR is the white pages. I've got this problem too. I run a packet bulletin board here. And as you noted, internet's taken over. So what used to be maintained on every server was white pages, which was routing. So you would put in the routing of someone's call sign, and you might, put in your case hashtag EON for Eastern Ontario, and the system would know enough to get that to you. Because white pages, they're not being maintained. Matter of fact, I'm not sure if any. I have to put a note out to find out, because I don't have a white page maintained on my system, and I've run into that problem a few. Anyways, so that's why you have to go such a horribly convoluted route. I'm glad to hear you're doing it. I'm intrigued to hear that STP and NRR are still operating.
Yeah, they certainly are. I've been using it for 2-meter WinLink. So we, for emergency communications, for instance, we go in through OCE in Ottawa.
Yeah. Okay. And if you're doing WinLink, are you sending a packet message to someone who then transfers it over to WinLink?
Yeah. So it's automated. So I can pass those packets all the way down. They're in Ottawa. That's the last one in that long list. I think it's OCE.
Yeah, OCE is and that would be the -10 is a WinLink station.
Yeah.
And so when you send it there, it then ports it over into WinLink because you've already given it your password.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we used to. Years ago, I ran a WinLink station here, and I think Len SOA had one here for a while on Packet, and then they moved off to using Vera,
right,
instead of Packet. But you're all on 145.010?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, is there anybody in your area that has an VHF gateway?
For WinLink?
No, for Packet.
Oh, I don't think so.
There used to be. Yeah, there used to be up there. Anyways, that kind of link makes things a lot easier. 14.105 lower sideband is the more common one.
The guy who would know and is kind of the keeper of this information is Bob V3YX.
YX, okay.
Yeah.
I won't drag on this. I mean, your APRS stuff's really good too. Is the text messaging system functioning at the moment?
Um, yes. So a number of the phone companies in the US turned it off
Yes.
so that you can no longer do an internet to text conversion, but someone created a server and a ham operator and has been maintaining it. But how long that will last, it's hard to say. And certainly some phone companies it's just completely shut down and they won't allow it, period. It's probably going away, but you'll
That's
still have
unfortunate.
email at least.
Yeah, well, what the text thing was really a brilliant stroke. You've deployed this across the Yukon, right?
APRS, we're only using it to collect telemetry data.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I was under the impression that you also had it as a messaging system.
No, so there was a packet messaging system years ago, and some of the stations are still exist, but some have been taken down, and they don't see a whole lot of value in it, so they're really just using the APRS stuff up there. But it's used here. The sending an APRS message to text was being used by the emergency communications folks because they could get a text out to the volunteer firefighters and so on through APRS. But now that that's going away, it's no longer an option, and so the only thing that's really left to do it is email, and frankly, lots of folks don't check their email very often, right? So
No. I did. Well, no, anyways, I won't keep you. Thanks for bringing this all up. It is near and dear to my heart, this one. I like it quite a bit.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
I think Pete was next.
No, we got him first, I think.
Okay, because I'm just getting the messages now. I think Cherry was next.
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Looks like that's it. Okay, thanks, Troy. That was pretty interesting. I didn't know much about APRS, but full of knowledge now.
All right. Thanks, Cam. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Eric. He's going to be doing the FDIMn North recap. Anytime you're ready, Eric.
All right, I'm going to leave my video turned off. No need to use up any more bandwidth than is necessary. So let's get to the slides here. Give me a moment. Let's see if I can do this all in one fell swoop. Oh, hang on. Okay. So just bear with me here.
Tick, tock, tick, tock.
I know, eh? Oh, come on.
Yeah, I've been watching everybody's signal here, and everybody's in the green. Good
Seems
connection.
Good. Okay.
What's that?
That's good.
Yep.
Sorry. Doing this a little bit differently, so it'll be worth the wait. Trust me.
So you're saying it's a bit more fell than swoop?
Okay, so here we go. Ta-da. Everybody see? Well, that's not what you're supposed to see, actually. That's what you're supposed to see. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So just had to figure out my multiple screens here. So I think this is primarily for the benefit, although not entirely, because it's a good recap, even though we were just there a week ago or less. For the benefit of, I think there's 3 on the call tonight that were not in attendance. Drew, Frank, and Sherry, I believe, if they're still with us here. So anyway, we just got wrapped up this past Sunday for our 4 days in May North Edition, number 2. So in total, there were 9 of us that attended the event for various numbers of hours or days. Hang on a sec here. Got to do some canine noise control. Perfect timing as always. Okay. So, nice spot. Ended up being, unbeknownst to myself or any of us, that it was on an Indian reservation, or at least we weren't aware till close to the time of arrival. So, anyway, be that as it may, it was a nice spot that we were at. Maybe not quite as luxurious as last year's event up at Smiths Falls, but certainly a decent enough spot for what we needed. Probably less than a year old, this place that we stayed at. Plenty of space for our activities. Setting up tables in the open concept kitchen living room area, lots of sleeping options. We probably only used about half of the available sleeping spots as it turned out. So yeah, everybody had their gear set up pretty much on arrival, whatever they were working on. So there's Barefoot Dave and Charlie starting to break out some things in their kit and work on things. So yeah, a good time was had by all, I think. Unfortunately, outdoors were not landscaped. That's how new this place was. So we, luckily weren't doing too many outdoor activities. Unfortunately, the place didn't even have a barbecue outside, so really we're relegated to doing all of our activities on the inside, with the exception of Ken, who set up a vertical outside. But hey, no shortage of places to drive a support into the soil there. Thankfully, it wasn't wet while we were there, so it didn't get too muddy inside the house. So there you go. That's pretty much what the 4 days were about. Nourishment and nourishment, I guess we'll call it. So that's Charlie's operating position, I guess we'll call it, on the right-hand side. And that is Howard's T41 on the left with some bench equipment as well. So getting set up for the activities on the Wednesday night for the session that we were watching virtually starting Thursday morning. So we got got into it bright and early, started at 8 a.m. on Thursday. There's Dave learning some vacuum tube fundamentals, I think, for one of the presenters. I forget who it was that was doing that one, but it was a full slate of presenters right from the start at 8 till 8 p.m. In fact, there was a break for lunch for an hour, and then about a 3-hour break, no, 2-hour break for dinner, I guess, in the late afternoon. But other than that, pretty much 11 hours of nonstop ham presentations to digest. So anyway, so yeah, everybody's rapt attention, with the exception of Charlie, who was tasked with keeping constant vigil for any outsiders that might try to come in. You'll see why later on. Interesting presentation, very good by a well-known person in the QRP community, Thomas Witherspoon, K4SWL, is talking about basically a video walkthrough of how they handled the Hurricane Helene damage in 2024 in North Carolina, where he is. So a lot of us had heard these stories before, but this was the first time getting a visual walkthrough as well as his narration of it, and quite the experience that they went through. And also talked about how some of his preparedness got to work. A lot of learning that happened, but distributing radios to neighbors and that they were using on an emergency basis. He was well equipped to assist with a lot of the comms work that were needed. No cell service, no way to communicate to first responders, emergency personnel, what have you. So that's a very good illustration of why having some backup systems come in handy. So yeah, maybe already too many late nights for some of us, but hey, that's all right. We could do whatever we wanted to, even if that was taking an afternoon nap. So this was Anthony Luskra's talk, going over a number of topics. It was a bit of a high-level view, I think, of operating. There's a little selfie with Dave in the foreground. Again, just throughout the day on Thursday with the virtual sessions. Are these slides advancing properly for everybody?
Yeah, looks right.
Let's get it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So yeah, this is what Charlie spotted is some unannounced foul across the highways. So first thing he yells out is Saturday night dinner. So plenty of wild turkeys visiting us. So they didn't get too close, thankfully. I guess maybe they heard his exclamation, but yeah, there were a blend of males, females there, but they were all in their spring glory. So got a few pics of them here, so that was kind of neat. This was an evening talk. Ashar Farhan was discussing, this is a schematic of his LARC set, which is his local amateur radio club's low-cost transceiver, sideband and CW transceiver that they sell for $29 US in quantities of 5. So it's intended to be a good entry point, I guess, for people that don't want to break the bank on a transceiver. This is version 1, which we had discussion at some length, has some we'll call it bugs to work out. There's are some issues with it, and we had some in-depth discussion about it. But hopefully, version 2 or something with all of the bugs worked out of it will be working, a little bit better. But like I said, a low cost. Update from into Farhan's stable of radios that he's come out with, including the previous ones, BitX and SBitX, ZBitX, all of those. So continuing the heritage. Musical instrument in the foreground there, but that is neither here nor there. We had some communications with our friends down in the United States. We've got from the left Rex, Sean, some random ham. I don't know if anybody knows who that is. I don't. Jim and Steve. So we had some back and forth with them, and we were getting a little bit of video walkarounds for the buildathon at FDIMn down there, as well as vendor night. We had a walk around club night and vendor night. Did somebody want to interject? Now I can't see who it is.
Yeah, it's Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
Yep.
Yeah, Eric, that's just colorful shirts. They're not, some of those guys we don't know. But one thing Sean said, he said that Rex was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and there were a bunch of other people that were wearing colorful shirts. So I think this is just a collection of people wearing colorful shirts.
Yeah, well, we know them all except the middle guy. That one I don't, but everyone else is are known quantities. So Steve on the end, the far end, that's Rex's traveling companion and co-main person. And of course, Sean from Hawaii, second from the left. So, and Jim Scott from Missouri. So, all right. So into some of our what we were working on. I was hoping that Kevin would be on the call here. He could talk about what he was up to here. I think working on some new radio as it appears on the screen. Go ahead.
Yeah, he was working on his dongle. He had a dongle, and you just see the antennas, the rabbit ears. He was trying to get a dongle working, I guess, in GNU radio.
Yeah, no, I see the new radio on the center screen there. So I was working on getting the modules working together. I tried shoving the antennas into his skull, and that seemed to, I think, improve things. I recall him letting out a little bit of an ouch, but worked well in the end. Yeah, so boxes of test equipment and so on there. There you go. So here we got Wayne and Charlie. That's the backplane radio as it stands in the center there with the boards. Charlie, did you want to maybe discuss a little bit about what you were working on there?
Well, there are sort of 5 folks working on various boards for the backplane radio. So we go off and build our boards on our own, but then comes the time for integrating them together into a system, and that anyone who's worked on multi-people projects before knows that doesn't always go well. So in this particular case, Wayne had sent me some very detailed information on how to talk to his board, which I ignored and made up my own idea how to talk to his board, and got it all wrong. So I was busily recoding to put it back the way Wayne had originally told me, and we finished off with the little microcontroller board that I produced, being able to talk to Wayne's filter board and switch in an appropriate filter based on whatever frequency the radio's tuned to.
I've got a few more slides here with, there's a little bit better view of the front of the business end, I guess we'll call it, of the radio. For
Yeah,
lack of a better term.
there's digital clocks, three separate clocks based on an SI 5351, and there's in the middle there you can see a TFT display, which displays, what frequencies are being produced, some of the status. You can use it for configuring things and so on. And then there's also a Raspberry Pi Zero on the left, and that basically runs a GUI program, if you wish, to make it a little easier to more quickly enter information into the DCO board for things like, sending. You can plug in the IF frequency, for instance, and it will automatically calculate what the clock should be while displaying on the front screen that I'm tuned to, 7.1 megahertz. And it will generate, 4 megahertz, let's say, to get you to that 11 megahertz IF, that sort of thing.
I might have some other, even bigger view for you there, more close up. And I believe you were also doing a side project that involved this can, did it not?
Yes, indeed. Thanks to Ken for loaning me a few shots of that. My Siglent scope was starting to give me troubles with not being able to adjust channel 1 voltage and the time base. I assumed it was probably dust, perhaps a bit of corrosion. It's been sitting on the shelf quite a bit for, 5 or 6 years. So I pulled it all apart, which was quite a challenge to get down into the guts of it, and then used some of that deoxit in the on those rotary encoder switches to clean them up. And I've been using it since I got back home, and it's I wouldn't say it's 100% improved, but it's probably 95%. It rarely skips anything right now, so I call it a definite success. I'm pretty happy with the outcome of that.
Nice. A little bit of deoxit to the rescue once again. Friday morning, Dave and I went for a trip, a little side trip for a couple hours to the visitor center. This is OPG's Darlington Nuclear Generating Station. So yeah, it was a modest visitor center, mostly, charts on the wall, as you see. Not a whole lot of up front. Unfortunately, you don't get to go to the plant itself, but what we don't have pictures of it, but we did get to see the mock-up area, which was really closed, but we befriended some of the visitor center employees who took us on a impromptu visit to the area where the training is done, essentially, for reactor refurbishment and radiation safety training, all of that in the fairly cavernous hangar that's, again, not seen, but somewhat like the view that's behind my head there, large area that has, again, full-scale mock-ups of all of the, or a lot of the equipment that the workers operate. So a interesting visit. Would have been nice to actually get to see the plant, but those days are long gone, unfortunately. A little bit of information on the new reactor technology that's coming on board, slated for Darlington, the SMRs, small modular reactors. So got a little bit of information on that, not a whole lot, but anyway, nonetheless, learned a few things, and it was worth the trip. It wasn't very far, maybe a 50-minute drive or so from where we were staying. So, all right, just another picture during the Thursday session. You can see on the screen in the background. This is the closest that we have to a group shot. So that's, I guess, 7, 8, 2, 4, 6, 7. 7 in the picture. I am not sure who's holding the camera, but Howard is the only one missing in this picture. I guess that would be Kevin taking the picture, or vice versa. But no, probably probably Kevin taking the picture, since his chair to the left is empty. So anyway, Dave was lamenting that we didn't get a group photo, which we'll have to remember for future events. But anyway, this is as good as it gets. So here's Dave working on his project. Dave, maybe you want to speak a little bit about what you were working on there for your Z80.
Yeah, I was trying to develop a electroshock therapy device to, cure some of the ails of some of our, members. No, but yeah, what it was is a speech processor I was putting together for Z80. It's a chip that I bought in the 80s, like 86 or so. And I was able to get it to work, and I had it saying, I think there's a video clip of it saying that famous line from War Games.
Yeah, I can show that at the end if anyone's interested. It's separate from this slideshow. Close up of the breadboard there. All right. And yeah, there's a little moment we had, I think, on Saturday, a pleasant transfer of knowledge happening where Charlie was explaining various portions of Asher-Farin's Lark set schematic. So yeah, lots of nice side discussions. Ken was working the airwaves, or at least trying to work the airwaves. What was the upshot in the end, Ken? Did you any proof positive that you got heard?
No. By the time we got the issue fixed, which was the dipole had gone completely out of tune, and got it back, tuning it again. That would have been late Saturday afternoon, and the bands were absolutely dead. Couldn't hear anybody, nothing going on. I think late afternoon, the only thing heard was Saudi Arabia, so there was a big pile up there. Couldn't hear anybody else talking to him. And then later on, there was another DX in Casablanca, Morocco. And again, there, I think I only heard 2 other Americans, but everybody else now couldn't hear anything at all. And of course, I tried calling, but the dipole's pointing in the wrong direction. So, but Charlie gave me a lot of help. We got the dipole tuned again. I did have an issue with my collapsible mask, and that's it, I guess.
Okay. All right, another selfie with just a random activities happening in the background. I believe this was Saturday that Dave brought a RC helicopter out for a flight. I think it was successful in the end. I did not see any of that, but I think it went well.
That was very impressive, I thought. It's quite big. It's almost 2.5 feet long, isn't it, Dave? At least something like that.
Yeah, it's a couple of feet.
And Dave claims it flies upside down. It can fly upside down.
All right. Got a few pics of your T41 here, Howard. Did you want to say a few words on what you were working on or doing?
Well, just essentially, I was seeing the effect of a modification from one of the group IO guys to eliminate harmonics in the output. So we were playing around with it with the board, without the board, and with Michael's SA, seeing the effects of the board. That's pretty well what we were doing. And it was working. It stopped working for a while, but then it started again.
We've got quite a few decent pictures here. I think a lot of these courtesy of Michael.
And we were also comparing it with the tiny essay just to see how that compared with the real essay. So the help was much appreciated.
There we go. It's me at Laptop Central. I guess that was still on Thursday, as there's a picture of, or a still from Tom Witherspoon's talk about the hurricane in the background. And this is towards the end. We're very sad that it was came to a conclusion on Sunday morning, I guess. This was. And then we had brunch, the last three that were there at the end. Charlie went on his way prior to this to Points East, but we were having exit interviews here at the diner on the reservation, so all went smoothly. And I also just wanted to pop this in here. I subjected everybody to a few minutes of a documentary that's currently in production on MFJ's founder, Martin Jew. Anyway, that was, I think, kind of, it'll be interesting when it comes out. The trailer and teasers were a little bit disjointed, I would say, and maybe a little dry, but anyway, interesting fellow, and hopefully the final production is going to be something to look at. Okay, for some reason, oh, there we go. There's a picture that Dave threw in while we were watching some of that, which was him and the man himself almost 10 years ago at Hamvention. So I was back in the Hera Arena, so back in the day. And that is pretty much that. Unless you do want to have a look at the video of Dave's.
Yeah, let's see if we can get it going. I don't know how well it's going to work.
Yeah. It may or may not, but we shall see. This, where is it? Come on. That's what I want. Is that sharing?
No.
No. Try it again here. Share. So maybe that's sharing.
Yeah, there you go.
Greetings, Professor Falcon. Would you like to play the paper?
That's it.
Greetings, Professor Falcon. Would you like to play the paper?
Success.
Greetings, Professor Falcon. Would you like to play the paper?
That was a good reason that we didn't go down to FDIMn, the real thing there. You know, there was an incident. So that was sent to us from Sean. So very cute. And yeah, that's about it. I also have a video that Sean sent us from, no, I was from the buildathon, so I don't think there's much to see there. I mean, I can play a few seconds of it here, but this was Rex's buildathon project. He calls it a code practice cider. So basically you have a LED inside of a vacuum tube that lights up when you key down.
Anyway, there
you go. So, all right. So that is it. So another successful event. I think everybody enjoyed themselves, and you know, we'll I think do it again next year. So back to you, Ken.
Very good. Yeah, it was a great weekend. Well, I was there on Friday through Sunday, but wish I had gotten out earlier. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of learning on my part anyways. And thanks to Charlie, we figured out what was wrong with my antenna. And I actually brought my Nano VNA. I hadn't touched in over a year. Did an update, installed Saver. And I'm actually using here at home, learning how to use Server. Yeah, so... Well, we've got, what's it, 10 after 9. Well, unless anybody has anything else to bring up or talk about, we can call it a night, gentlemen. We in agreement?
Just one thing, Ken.
Yeah.
After the next meeting, which is the first Wednesday, the 3rd of June, we're going to give Google Meet a try. Charlie has graciously offered to let us have use of an account that he has access to. So we're going to give it not for the main meeting, but afterwards. We're going to, you know, around this time, split off and give that platform a try, see what the functionality is as far as recording and video quality and dropouts. I was getting some issues on the recording here with this, you know, video turned off to save bandwidth, plus choppy audio here and there. So I see a little bit of chatter as well in the chat that people were otherwise having issues as well that I wasn't seeing. So it seems to be happening for some and not others, and vice versa. So it's a little bit random with the Jitsi platform. So anyway, just a heads up, those of you that want to try out a different platform, we're going to give it a shot. So see if it fits our bill.
Okay. All right, guys, let's call it evening. Next meeting is June the 3rd on Wednesday, and that'll be our mixer. So everybody have a good evening, have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, very good. We'll talk to you later. Thanks very much.
Yeah, good night.
Thanks, Ken, and thanks to Eric and the others for organizing the field day thing. It was very good.
Yes. Okay. Well, you three all.